Well, let's get more now from our reporter on this top story in the violence in Mozambique. The Lebombo border post has been closed once again following renewed violence, we understand. Our reporter Nonhlanhla Jele is standing by for the latest for us. Nonhlanhla, talk to us about the latest violence. We did understand, of course, there was calm that was restored along the border. What's happening now?
Good afternoon to you, Unati, and to the viewers at home. I'm just going to step away so you can see what is currently happening. Previously, the border post was closed, but as you can see, the gentlemen, they are trying to push this gate that leads to Ressano Garcia, which is the border post to Mozambique. So this means that now the border post is being once again opened. As you mentioned, it was calm earlier on in Mozambique this afternoon. So now we understand, as the BMA commissioner earlier briefed the media and told the media that they were still waiting for Mozambique to be ready, the Mozambican border, Unati, to be ready to start receiving people. As you can see, Unati, the border post is once again being opened. The gentlemen, they currently are trying to push open the gate. Yesterday in the evening, this gate was shut because, of course, tensions were starting to spiral into Ressano Garcia, and of course they were going to start affecting the South African side. We also know that the workers in the border post in Mozambique had also fled for their lives, Unati, and came to the South African side where they took shelter overnight. But as you can see, Unati, the border post is being opened once again. We are expecting the BMA Commissioner, Dr. Mike Masiapa, just to give us an update as he's walking close to a camera. I'm just going to ask him, Dr. Mike Masiapa, thank you so much for your time and for joining us at the SABC this afternoon. We see they are pushing the gate. If you can just tell us what is happening. Are we reopening or what is happening?
Yeah, no, thank you very much, Tlanka. Yeah, maybe just to indicate that since this morning we have been hard at work engaging with our Mozambican counterparts regarding this whole issue of having to reopen, the port. So what ultimately happened is we had a very long conversation with the leadership of customs as well as the leadership of immigration that came from Maputo to here, and we had to then engage about the issue that the port needs to be reopened, particularly because the indications are that the protests have fairly subsided on the Mozambican side. So on that basis, they then agreed that they are going to start preparations, particularly in terms of making sure that the environment it is fairly cleared for the purposes of reactivating the work, as it were. So on that basis, we then agreed that around 3 o'clock we will then reopen the port. We still call it a partial reopening of the port, and the reason why we call it partial reopening is because the current focus is going to be on people movement. It's going to be on the movement of people, and then later on we will then be able to deal with issues of cargo. The cargo movement is the most complicated one, primarily because the place called Kilometer 4 had been seriously destroyed. The computers has been taken, and on that particular basis they had to replace those computers and make sure that they're able to reconnect and be able to do customs processing. But in terms of immigration, they are fairly ready, and that is why we are then able to reopen. So from now people are allowed to come through, but of course we still want to maintain that we are not necessarily encouraging South Africans to be coming through for holiday purposes. We are still saying that we want to encourage Mozambicans that are in South Africa, who are in South Africa, want to go back to Mozambique, that they can be able to go back home. But at the same time, we are also receiving the trucks that are empty coming from the Mozambican side back into South Africa. So we still consider it as a partial reopening, as it were, because it's not a full-blown reopening, as it were.
Yesterday we saw some Mozambican nationals who wanted to come and have their work visas renewed and stamped. Are there any arrangements made, especially for them, because they were saying they're expiring and they needed it back?
Yeah, no, definitely. We had actually engaged on that, but that is purely an issue of the South African side. So our officials are definitely going to take care of those processes. So they can then come through, they will then be stamped for exit, they will then be stamped for entry on the Mozambican side, and then they they can be able to return. That is just on the basis of the 30 days issue that is basically being applied in the current situation. So that is basically what it means. So at the end of the day, we are also looking at the mechanisms for a concession for somebody, for example, whose day might have passed by something like a day or two. We are not going to be declaring them undesirable because we understand the reason for the situation, and on that basis we are going to deal with it according to that.
Thank you so much for your time, Unathi. There you have it, Dr. Mike Masiapato, BMA Commissioner, just saying to us that they agreed that they're going to partially once again open the border post, to allow Mozambican nationals who are in South Africa, who wish to go back home, and of course for truck drivers who are stuck in Mozambique who wish to go back home. The border has once again been opened. As you can see, Unathi, the port is fully opened. People are encouraged to go home. Those who were stuck at the border post yesterday, Unathi, because they wanted to stamp their work visas, are also being told or advised to come so that those issues can be sorted out, because we understand they said to us, should they not have their work visa stamped or signed, they're going to lose their jobs, they're going to be banned in the country for a year. Others were saying 5 years. So now the border is once again, Unathi, partially opened for people who want to go back to Mozambique, and for South Africans in Mozambique who wish to come back home. We also made mention that it is not advisable for South Africans who wish to go to Mozambique for travel leisure to start traveling at this point, as the border is still partially open, and of course tensions are still ongoing in Mozambique. Until that is sorted out, I'm sure the port of entry, Unathi, is going to be fully opened. Unathi?
Well, I'll tell you one thing, it is good news, particularly for the economy, that border is, at least for now, partially opened. Nonhlanhla Jele, thank you so much for that update. Of course, she's reporting to us live there from the Lebombo border post, where we saw there the reopening, partially, at least for now. We heard earlier from the Road Freight Association that the economy of South Africa, and in fact both the Mozambique and South Africa, were losing up to 10 million rands a day because of those closure and because of the violence there. That at this stage in time, we understand 18 people have been killed during those protests following that election on October 9. So we'll keep keeping you up to tabs in terms of what is happening there.